everybody, and welcome to the show. Today we have a special guest, Nicole, my lovely wife. We had some technical difficulties, sorry we're running a little bit late there. The way we had it set up first, it worked great the first time, and then when we went to go live, of course, it wasn't working. So, is how it goes sometimes. But we got it fixed, and we're happy to talk about this a little bit. Before I go too much further, I'd like to, as usual, plug my stuff. There are links in the description that should take you to the website that has all the cool stuff that we have. The most recent stuff I have to offer is the hypnotherapy sessions. It's an initiatory thing for the planetary powers that you can do that it's like a complimentary thing for your great work, and that sort of ties into how we're going to segue into this particular topic, because the sound healing that we're going to be talking about is very much a complementary therapy that is associated with the transformation of the self and the healing of the things that are wrong with us, and the healing of the physical problems, the mental problems, the spiritual problems that people have in their lives. Sound has been historically a known healing component. And today, like when I tell people about the sound healing thing, because it's associated with New Age healing and chakras and a lot of the stranger New Age mentality things, it can get whitewashed or washed over with all of that. But Bartimaeus Black commented on one of our early posts about the bowls that Nicole was getting, that there was a whole section in Agrippa, and I had read it years and years ago, and I didn't really understand it because I didn't have the knowledge framework to really process all this musical stuff. And Nicole's been taking this class in sound therapy or sound healing for the last year or so, and part of her lessons include all this music theory and notes and all this stuff. And she was looking at the stuff in Agrippa, and sure enough, it's the same things that she's learning in her class. So she was just showing me that, and I took a look at it, and we're going to talk a little bit about that and how it all works. It's really cool, the whole framework, what Agrippa is talking about in this is all in book 2 of the 3 books of occult philosophy, and in chapters 24 through 28, and he talks about sound in general, the voice and the tone, which is, it's like the tone of the sounds, and how they are related to the planetary energies and the proportions of the human person, how they can transform the person into a celestial entity when you're attuned with all the planetary forces, and how that impacts the body, mind, and spirit, so that you can be more I guess in tune with everything else. So we'll go over sort of what is in the book first of all, and then we're going to talk more about the specifics of what it means in real life, practical things from Nicole, because she's the one that knows these things today. I am an observer. I've got the Agrippa stuff and the 16th century stuff, but we're going to rely on her for everything that has to do with sound healing and modern applications thereof. So.
Not an expert yet.
No, I mean, comparatively, yes, for sure. So, all right. So, where are we going to start? Let's start with chapter 24. So, this part is going to be sort of like kind of studious, but it's all right. I'll try to make it interesting and skip ahead to the fun parts. We're going to try to play some music along the way, and if you can hear it, great. If you cannot, then I apologize in advance. I'll try to get that sound.
I recommend you wearing headphones if you have any. That might help.
Yep, for sure. And we're live in the chat room too. If you have any questions, do feel free to shoot them over. I will try to pause throughout the presentation to address people's whatevers. So, okay. So, all right. So Agrippa was a 16th century philosopher and occultist. He wrote the 3 books of occult philosophy. When he was 14, traveling across Europe, he studied with Trithemius and all the great occultists of his time. He observed all parts of Europe, and he recorded all the occult interesting things that he saw along the way. In chapters 24 through 28, he talks about, for example, he found a stone that vibrates and makes a noise that is when you pluck a harp next to it. So those are the kind of things that he would find. It's like they had their museums of the strange and obscure and all these supernatural things in all the little towns that he would visit, and he would go to them and he would observe them and record them and talk about what principles of occultism were being displayed there. And we'll talk about some of the things he found with sound there. But that's the framework of what was going on with this. He was trained in hermetics. Most of what his presentation is a 16th century understanding of the hermetics that were coming out of the fall of Constantinople and into Europe through the Medici libraries and translation efforts. He presented the occult philosophies as they understood the Corpus Hermeticum at the time. It's really pretty cool. And he incorporated what he learned from that into his presentation of all of the occult stuff, and he gave us a complete encyclopedic understanding of occultism of his day. So, all right. So in chapter 24, Agrippa is discussing all the instances of musical harmony as it appears in nature and what the impact of that is on the world around us. His argument is that all these musical instances of sound and voice are alluring the celestial influences that are correlated to those sounds to specifically change the affections, intentions, gestures, motions, actions, and dispositions of all the hearers, and doth quietly allure them to its own properties as to gladness, lamentation, to boldness or rest, and the like. So what he's saying there is, when you hear sounds, one of the qualities of sound is that it conveys to you this set of information. Like, I'm talking to you right now, you're hearing my words, you're looking at me, you're seeing the information. There's information being displayed and exchanged. Sound in particular, however, is not just information like reading it off a page. It changes the affections and the intentions, the gestures and motions, actions and dispositions of all the hearers. So sound impacts the hearers in ways that just raw information doesn't. When you're conveying something from your invisible world into the world around you with the vibration of your voice and your spirit working all these things together to create this sound, you convey intent, you convey attitude, you convey feeling and emotion, all the affections, the affectations that go around this idea, all the qualities of the planets are conveyed to you through specifically the tones, the notes, and the combination of the harmonies of those particular sounds. And he explains how each of the planets correlate to each of the types of music and the different types of sounds that are specifically assigned to each of those things. And we'll talk to Nicole about those things in particular. But the sounds are what changes the world with emotional intent. It's important to remember that that's what sound conveys in ways that regular displays of information do not. He talks about how it impacts the beasts and nature as examples of this. He talks about how dolphins become your friends when you sing to them or play music to them. He talks about how elephants in India are tamed with the beautiful voices of people who are trying to calm them down and everything. There's a fountain he talks about in Italy that overflows when you blow a trumpet. I suspect somebody turned on the flood switch when they heard the trumpet, but that's just my opinion. He has a record from history where somebody saw some nymphs come out of the bay when somebody played a pipe. And he talks about the resonant stones that vibrate with a harp when you pluck it. So these are all things that he saw in his day that reflected how sound, in his understanding, changed this physical world. And he was pointing out that these vibrations and this intention is conveyed in a way that changes your physical world. So that's the physical side of things: nature, rocks, animals. All right, and spirits of nature, nymphs. So then, not only the physical world, but also the mental side. He talks about how it appeases the mind, it raises the spirits, right? It raises your personal spirits, your affections, your emotions. It stirs you to fight if you need to be angry about things, and it refreshes people who are tired. You can hear music and you feel refreshed. It makes camels endure when you're talking to the camels in the desert. But basically, what he's saying here is this emotional exchange changes. It's sensate in the world around him in all these different ways. And then he goes on to talk about how it also is known to heal historically the diseases of the body and the diseases of the mind. And he gives examples from Democritus and Theophrodus about how sound was used to cure the effects of a spider bite in Apulia, for example, that was leaving victims astonished until they heard the sound. And when they heard the sound, they were able to get up and dance. And that's what indicated that this venom had stopped affecting them in a certain way. And somehow hearing the sound, it changed everything. No, camels aren't all that interesting, no, I'm sure. Somebody's commenting. Alexander says camels are not all that interesting. Hi, Alexander. So healing. So historically, even in Agrippa's day, he had these records of the ancients of Greece and Pythagoras and these other people who were using the effects of sound to impact the world around them. He talks about those who are pained with sciatica are eased by the sound of pipes. And Democritus goes on to say that pipes cure many things. So in all of these instances, he's talking about how sound is complementary to the desired result. So it's through the sound that they are able to make the friends with the dolphins and the wild beasts, to make the stone sing. You pluck a harp next to it. To make the fountain overflow, you make the noise. But these experiences of healing, these experiences of transition and transformation in the physical world happen as a result of the resonance to the noise that's being made, the sound next to you. So these are the same principles that result in modern healing. So not only in those particular areas, there's also a whole magical aspect of sound that impacts the spiritual realm around us. And Agrippa quotes from Orpheus, Amphion. He refers to David and Saul in the Bible, Pythagoras, Empedocles, Asclepiades, and Timotheus. But he talks about all the different ways that sound are referred to in the mythologies to stir up different aspects of the spiritual world. I'm not going to go over all of them, but they are used to stir up dull spirits that aren't responding to you. You can encourage them with sound. That's historic in our mythos. You can use it to restrain wanton or angry spirits, and like the way that David calmed Saul with that secret chord that was pleasing to the Lord and all that stuff. And it can be used for exorcisms because it drives off evil spirits, because harmoniousness is something that they can't stand. And it's known to change moods and your phlegms, your humors, and your stuff on the inside. It's used to calm things like your extravagant anger or even lust. Pythagoras was known to have calmed a youth from his immoderate lust. So apparently they used it for treating sex addiction or whatever. So that's just how sound impacts the physical world. And then he goes on in chapter 25, he talks about the intent of the mind and the ways of the will manifest through its nuances through sound. And he talks about the qualities of air. And he gets kind of boring. I'm going to skip over the boring bits. He talks about how the qualities of air, though, are like it holds your sound in the same way that it holds temperature, and it's the medium through which our senses experience things, but it's actually the sound that is being carried through it that conveys the intention of the magician, the expression of his will, and the harmonics of the other 7 planets that are being mingled and commingled in the magician's expression of their intent to create the world. And he doesn't say it that cleanly and clearly, but that's basically what he's saying. But he talks about how the voice imbues the air with a living sound that interacts with the hearer and the universe at large through resonance to change the world, drawing down the harmonious intents through the sound of our voice. And specifically what he says is, speech is a breath pronounced with sound, and a voice signifying something, the spirit of which proceedeth out of the mouth with sound and voice. Chaludius saith of the voice sent forth out of inward cavity of the breast and heart by the assistance of the spirit. So he's saying it comes out of here. So like when you're actually speaking in ways that are going to change the world, it's not just speaking out loud and saying, hello, my name is Joshua, and I would like you to go forth, O kings of the elements, and change the world for me. You know, it's speaking from the heart. It's speaking from your core. It's with intensity and emotion and you're putting your affectations around this information. He talks about how singing can do more than the sound of than an instrument can. It is because it's coming out of the mind of a magician. It encourages more change in the subject. Hi Thomas, how's it going? Nice to see you. Thomas Sasso says hi, Nicole. Let's see, we've got it moveth the affection of the hearer by his affection. So the way sound works to change the world is through resonance. When I speak passionately about something and encourage people to feel that emotion through my words, it resonates with the vibration within the hearer, and that's how that is able to transfer that feeling. It draws out what is already in you. It brings out in a complementary way those aspects of yourself that you're trying to get in touch with. In the same way that getting an initiatory ritual into a sphere puts you in touch with the 7 spheres, playing this music draws out the related energies, if you will, the vibrations, the harmonious part of you that you've gotten from your descent through the 7 spheres and your original incarnation as a human being, from the divine Pymander. All that energy that you got from the divine Pymander's explanation of how we got here is pulled out of you and brought, activated and energized and resonated by these musical notes that are played next to you with intent and sincerity, especially in sound healing. So Stone Esoteric asks, so this is why the cadence and tone, etc. matter when reciting spell work. Yes, the cadence and tone will impact your spell work. I think that it needs to reflect the emotions that are resonant with your intention. So like if you're doing something angry and violent, your tone should be angry and violent. Your hecus este bibeloi, But if you're doing something that's kind of silent and sneaky at the end of a night shift when you're at the graveyard and you don't want to wake up everybody, you're going to be all right. You're gonna make your tone match your intent. Some people take it too far, in my opinion. That people have been kind of over dramatic in my ritual experiences, especially in front of other people. But you gotta get into it, and the more you get into it, the better. So who am I to judge? I ain't gonna argue with it. But anyway, so the more vibration you put into it, the more intent and emotional feelings that you're feeling from it. It says, from hence and moving the affectations, harmony conferreth so much that not only natural but also artificial and vocal harmony doth yield a certain power both to the souls and bodies. So even if you force it, you can create and force a change in the world with with the sounds, whether you feel it or not. So if you sound angry, you can make other people angry. If you sound calming, you can make other people calming. It's exactly the kind of things that we already subconsciously are aware of, but this information kind of draws it out. So that's chapter 25. Chapter 26, this is where it actually gets into the actual intervals of the planets, and this is where we're going to try to do some music. Hopefully it'll work. I'm going to see if
we'll see how it goes.
I don't know if you're going to be able to hear it or not. So if you're active in the chat, I would appreciate it if you could let us know if you're hearing it as we go along. I have to pull up Agrippa here to the right chapter so we can read exactly what it says, because it's kind of it's Old English. What is this? This is book 2, chapter 28, 25. All right. 20, what is it? All right, here we go.
26.
26, yes, thank you. But understanding now of the 7 planets, Saturn, Mars, and the Moon. Okay, so, but understanding now, of the 7 planets, Saturn, Mars, and the Moon have more of the voice than of the harmony. And by voice, he's talking about the tone of what you're singing than the harmony. So Saturn hath sad, hoarse, heavy, and slow words and sounds, as it were, pressed to the center. So like things that draw you down into yourself. Sad sounds, deepening sounds. That's Saturn. But Mars is rough, sharp, threatening great and wrathful words. The Moon observes a mean between the two, right? So Saturn, Mars, and the Moon are your malefics. and they're sort of in the middle. And then Jupiter has a constant fixed sweet sound, Sol's interval sweet and pure, Venus is lascivious and delicate, Mercury's harmony's more reminiscent, etc., etc. Let's see. The tone of particulars and proportion consorts obeyeth the 9 muses. So each of the planets have those different things, but then to create the idea, it obeys the inspirations of the 9 muses, and each of the 9 muses has their own style and chord setup. What's it called? The mode. So like Dorian is solar, Phrygian is martial, Hypolidian is Venusian, and Hypodorian is the moon. Anyway, each of the muses have their own way of presenting things too, and he lists all those. But what I want to get to is where was it? Where it actually says, oh, here we go. I think it's, no, that's not it. Do you have a copy of it there, sweetie? I have got the.
Oh, no, I just have what you just said.
I had this ready to go. Let's see.
Might want to break out your book.
I'm looking at it and I can't. The tone, particulars, and portion consonant obey the 9 muses. Jupiter. Oh, here it is. It's right there. There's the next sentence. Jupiter hath the grace of the octave, also the quinte. These the diapason with the diapente. So I have no idea what that means. This is where.
I don't know if you guys can hear this.
Let me see. Okay, is anybody out on the chat room? Stone Esoteric or Thomas Sasso or Alexander? Can you guys hear the music coming through? I'm not seeing anybody responding, so I don't know. Anyway, it's basically it's a C, barely. Stone Esoteric says that they can barely hear it. Yeah, and Daryl can't hear it. I don't know. Do you want to try to move the phone
closer? Put it closer.
See if we can't get this to work. No. Yeah, very faint. Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. See, so unfortunately our microphone has noise cancellation on it. I don't know how to turn it off. So I was worried that might not work. But anyway, you can hear that. That's the tonal sound of Jupiter, and what it does is it creates those vibes in you that relate to your Jupiter energies inside you, and it draws out that energy into your life. And what seems to happen is it's not an instant. I mean, there's an instant result, and we'll talk about that later. All right. So chapter 26 has all the intervals. When you read through it, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Nicole.
Well, I thought you were going to get into what intervals Jupiter really is.
Oh, you want to? I don't know what those are. Do you want to?
So I mean, I wanted to play them, but no one can really hear it. So it would be the octave, which is a low C, high C, and an abundance of perfect fifths is how he sort of described it in his text.
An abundance of perfect fifths?
Yeah, like a melody of abundant fifths. So like a C and a G, or E and B, D and A. Those are all perfect fifths, and
in sound healing they have specific results too, right? Like a corresponding healing thing. So what are those? What are those? How does that apply in your actual healing then?
So a perfect fifth it's an immune system booster. It can get rid of viruses. It can help clear bacteria infections. Right. It's a chakra balancer. And it's also one of the intervals that you fill in and empower chakras that have had a release. So with sound healing, we have 2 different main types of intervals, and they're releasing and harmonizing intervals. So the releasing intervals would be like the seconds and thirds, and they sound more dissonant. and they're not harmonious at all. And you can actually, what you were just talking about with Agrippa, he was talking about the qualities of the malefic spheres, and even the seconds and the thirds in music theory, they have a very dissonant, ominous, eerie sound for good reason.
Right. I was just reading the comments. Cosmo Love says diapason equals octave, diapente equals fifth, and octave equals second harmonic, and fifth equals third harmonic. So I think you figured all that out this morning when we were talking about it too. You were like, "Oh, that's this," and you were like, "That's that," and this was that. And I was like, "Oh, you understand all this stuff." I didn't understand all this stuff. So anyway, I think it's pretty impressive that we can actually direct these planetary forces in such a simple way. You know.
Yeah, I'm not too keen on the words from 16th century, but I know what pente means. So
yeah. Well, it works out really well. If the audience wants to read more about which sounds go with which things, well, they can probably see that. Stone Esoteric says, so like Handel's Messiah. So Handel's Messiah, in my opinion, is like Jupiterian. I think it's very Jupiterian. But I think it's interesting that the fifths are used for healing or the whatever it was that are used for your immune system are of Jupiter, and then the Orphic Hymn to Jupiter talks about how, grant us your wealth and necessary, or your health and necessary wealth. And it's like you don't think about health as being Jupiterian. Like I know robust health and prosperity. Like I always thought of wealth and prosperity, but I don't think of health like your physical health necessarily as Jupiterian, but it totally is. And then you see it in the octave. So anyway, yeah. So.
wait, you were gonna like read through the entire thing, and we just started talking about Jupiter and its symbols.
All right. So okay, let's see. What was the next one? Okay. So all right. Soul obtains the melody of the octave voice, these diapason. In like manner, by 15 tones, a disdiapason. So, what is? How does that?
So it would be an octave, and the way he described it is like the voice of an octave, so all the notes in between as well.
Okay.
Maybe.
Let's see. We've got. Let's see. Soul obtains the melody of the octave voice via diapason. And okay, I just heard that one. And Venus keepeth the grace of the quinte or diapente. So is that the grace of the fifth?
Yeah.
All right. And Mercury hath
perfect fifths.
Perfect fifths?
All the perfect fifths.
Okay. So those are all of Venus as well.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And Mercury hath diatessaron?
A fourth.
Oh, okay. And the grace of the quartet. Yeah, that's the next one. Yeah, okay, the fourth. Okay, so this is like music that's like so like when you just play like from C, D, E, F, G, like that would be like a quartet, right? Just the four notes together, and you just keep playing in those four notes. Is that what anyway, I can't remember.
No. Are you talking about Mercury? A perfect fourth?
Oh yeah, the grace of the quartet.
Yeah, so a perfect fourth would be like a C and F.
Oh, okay. Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's still talking about when you mix the. All right, I get it.
Yeah, and it's funny because the fourths are meant to be grounding, and it's good for coming back like after you've released and you have filled up with the fifths. The fourths are really good for bringing back the healthy patterns that you reestablish with your statement of intents.
Right. So what was it? Can we go back to all right, so we talked about how Jupiter was the seas, and it brings health, right?
Jupiter is an octave, and the abundance of the fifths.
All right, so soul obtains the melody of the octave voice via diapason and like manner 15 tones. So do you have any how would that, do you have any a corresponding thing in your sound healing think charts that would correspond to a solar sound that would be like that?
Um, well, I mean, so like playing a high C, low C,
Okay. And then
that
what kind of
that
thing does that do in the sound healing charts where they talk about like what the
it
effects are?
op so it opens you up. It makes you receptive or just clear-minded and receptive. It can also help with like joint flexibility and joint problems, which I find really funny because like the sun helps with that like as well.
Uh-huh.
So,
Yeah, that's interesting because it's very much a spiritually cleansing kind of opening, preparing you to receive kind of thing. I can see it. I can see how
yeah,
that
and
fits.
it's also so like playing a high C and low C, it brings like a sense of just like clear awareness is um kind of how I would describe it. I don't know.
Hmm.
And like I like to play it in the beginning because it helps people like open up and get ready to receive the sounds. Like it's a very benefiting interval to play to get people to receive.
Hmm. So, all right, let's go ahead and go on to let's see, we just did the sun. Let's go ahead and do, in Venus, it says it keeps the quinte or diapente. So we talked about that was already the perfect fifth, but and that is also for healing, right? Is there anything that's sort of traditionally generative or sexual or related to any of the other chakras that might have a Venus type energy to it that would be related to the fifths, or is it
I
more
mean,
just
so
benefics?
yeah, so like the bowls are associated with chakras, and it's believed that the D bowl is associated with Venus.
Venus gets the
So,
D bull, huh? Okay. It's not my fault.
yeah.
All right.
Why not?
Cool. All right. All right. I can see it. I can see it. All right. So okay, but sorry, I closed out of my. I'm gonna go back to this. All right. So without getting too into that, moving on. Mercury hath diatessaron, the grace of the Corte. So, and we talked about Mercury was grounding and brings you back into yourself. So that's sort of like a travel
Right.
thing. And Mercury is very good at opening ways and moving things. And you said also, what were you talking about with the pattern? Something about
Yeah.
establishing patterns.
So after a release, like if a chakra or there's a release of a suppressed emotion, um, there's a void that needs to be filled after that. And what we do is we fill it in with a fifth, and the fourth helps ground the statement that you set in the beginning.
Okay, okay.
And to,
You're talking about the healing process and how sound can kick off the healing process, right?
yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
I want to hold off on that for just a second because I wanted to keep going over just the pieces of the notes real quick to finish up those. But I do want to, yeah, I want to talk about the whole healing process because I think that there's more to it that I think that you were talking about before that I wanted to make sure that we touch on. And I don't want to lose sight of the what was after Mercury. It's just the moon, right?
Mhm.
Let's see. It says. Moreover, the ancients being contact with four strings, trouble of the air. Oh, talks about Agrippa does go on to talk about how the four stringed instruments all relate to the elements, and you can attune those with different things too. Is there an elemental attribute to the bowls as well when you're doing the healings and stuff like that, or is it more planetary?
Yeah, yeah. So, With my Koshi chimes,
Right.
there's each scale is tuned specifically to a certain element. So yeah.
Hmm. Interesting. Interesting. I wonder if that lines up to this too. I bet it does.
And it's funny because we have like two major scales with music. We got minors and major scales will help bring their more like outward, outspoken, I don't know. And then like minor scales are like more intrinsic, reflective. So like the elements for the outspoken would be like fire and earth, and the intrinsic or more intuitive or reflective would be air and water.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Cool. Um, I I kind of understand it, but not really. I will trust you though because you do seem to know what you're doing with it. But what I wanted to talk about is like sort of how going back to what you were just talking about with the process of healing, like when you're playing this music. Agrippa talks about how it's the sound and the intention of the person gets conveyed through the sound to kick off this healing and this transformation of the physical world, and this process of actually practically changing the world through the application of sound. I think that's like the key. That's the money maker out of all of this stuff. Like like in every piece of information, there's something that's like very interesting and it makes you feel a certain way. But then there's a way to turn it into something that lets you create something new based on that piece of information. And that's like the most exciting part for me from all of this. So like when you're actually doing these sound baths on me, when we were doing some healing work and when you were doing your learning and your training and all these things, you'd like learn something and you'd test it out, you'd record the results, you'd report on it to your sponsor. They give you feedback on it, and it's this whole process for each of the lessons as you go through it, right? So and you've got me and a few other people in our friend group have volunteered to be treated and as part of your training and stuff, and we've been your guinea pigs while you've tested it out on us. And I want to talk about how this stuff really changes people's lives, right? Because that's the cool stuff, I think, in my opinion. And Agrippa is interesting and all, but it's not the power of the sound music stuff, right? I think it's great that Agrippa has all this stuff in it, and of course it resonates historically with Theophritus and Diatronitis and Lycanosis Messon Sol Rey and Ptolemy and all, right? It does. The proportions of the body and all the stuff that what's his name, Da Vinci gets into. All those things are really cool. And I'll circle around a little bit eventually and get back to that. But when you do the sound bath and you play the music and you play the fifth or the C or the C and the low C and the high C, it creates a change in people, and it manifests a result. And can you talk about what happens specifically in the healing process? Like, what is happening when the sound first impacts a person? Like, where does it start in you? It comes through, you do this healing, and then it changes. How can you go through the whole thing?
Yeah. So wow.
Yeah, we didn't talk about this part in the notes, but this is the part that even
Yeah, like
in the
I
outline
wasn't
I said,
expecting.
and this is where we'll fill in the blanks. This is filling in.
Okay. Um, yeah, so the way that a session would generally start is through a connection, and the way, so humans, like we have our own natural frequencies, not only with our voice, but also with our hands. They emit healing frequencies, and also our hearts. Our hearts can, when we activate the qualities of the power of the heart, miracles can happen. And it's like, so like that's the first step is connecting to your client through through the heart. And so like already, like even before a client comes in, I'm thinking about the client. I'm activating unconditional love inside of myself. And the way that we're taught to do that is to remember a time where we felt love and supported, um, and just for the person that we are. And maybe some people have like personal, like powerful experiences with people, but for me, like the thing that activates the energy of my heart is thinking about all of the times where my goddess Hecate came to me, and where she actually responded to me and has guided me. And so um, I would like remember those memories, and that's how you activate this energy.
Right. So that goes back to what Agrippa was saying. It starts in the heart. It's like it has to come from the middle and move out, right? Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah. So and then so you start with remembering your goddess. You get back in touch with your source, with your through your practice within the framework, all the crap I'm always going on about. The source is our source of everything, and you get back in touch with that through your relationship with this source that you've established with Hecate, and your daily rituals and your ongoing. We didn't talk about your history, so everybody. Nicole is a witch of long ago. She's been doing witchcraft for a long time and all of this stuff, and she's a very powerful witch, and she great to be around. I've known her for years and years before we got together, and I'm happy that we ended up being spousal. But regardless of that, I always thought she was a great wizard and magician, and highly underrated for all the skills and
Wizard.
talents. Yeah, but you've been healing people in our community, like off and on behind the scenes. People have been reaching out to you for rituals. You used to work with. Asclepius, and there was a goddess he used to work with as well, and the Hecate, of course. And you've done healing rituals for people that have been effective, and candle magic, and you did hands-on healing stuff. But do you want to talk about how you got into the sound healing thing, or is it something
Yeah,
you want to?
sure.
Okay, all right, yeah. Can you go over that
Yeah.
real quick, or?
So, I mean, it started with Hecate, actually. I hurt my shoulder pretty bad at pole dancing, and a photographer asked me to do a move on my left side I wasn't prepared to do. I wasn't trained enough on that side, and I was like, oh, sure, why not? And then I ended up really messing up my shoulder from that. And I had to go through physical therapy, and that was like 9 months of PT, and it was helping a little bit, but I wasn't getting like the real pain relief that I thought that I should be getting from it. And so I petitioned Hecate on a new moon, and I was like, I need help. Like, I want to pole dance. I want to like do all this stuff again. Like, but I'm
Yes,
still
yes.
not feeling like 100%. And I mean, like I could do like some moves here and there, but like I was still hurting.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
so,
thought you looked great, but
and so,
I mean, it was wonderful. I didn't have.
oh my God, don't-
Anyway, so yes, your shoulder was sore. You were in pain. You reached out to Hecate for help. I'm
yeah.
sorry, I didn't mean to.
And then like within a few days, I got an invite from a friend, and she's like, "Hey, like you want to go to a sound bath?" I'm like, "Oh, what's that?" And she's like, "I think you'll like it." And so we went, and I had pretty profound experience.
Mm-hmm.
And
I remember when you came home, you were all like quiet about, and it's sort of like it was like you went into like you've got a placement in cancer that like everything gets quiet and distant when you have an experience you have to keep. You were in the zone
yeah, it
when you
took
got back.
me. I mean, like it was definitely very intense. I like had actual physical sensation move up from like my palm, like so I had my palm on the floor, I was laying down, and the vibrations would come up and then all the way up my arm and into my shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
And I could feel like where the injury was and it was like an electric sensation, like a pulse almost. And it was going like exactly where I needed to go. And in those moments, when I was having these sensations and visualize like this light, like going into, I had a vision, and Hecate went down. Like I saw her. She first was like came up to me, and I felt her feet, the vibrations of her feet, and then she came down. And I'm getting goosebumps talking about this. And she came down and like went down right into my ear and whispered to me, "You are exactly where you need to be." And in those moments, I was like, whoa, if I'm having this vision of her, like she was delivering me my petition, but I was like, this is important. Like if I'm getting a vision like this, like it seems like maybe. So then after that, I became hooked.
Yeah, I remember we got, like, it was like a week later, we had like a whole set of bowls that we bought on Amazon, and they weren't even perfect
No,
pitch
I mean
or anything.
it wasn't that fast. It wasn't that fast.
It
Like
seems like it. We were.
I started off with the root chakra bowl, and then worked my way up after like 4 weeks or so, and then found the Sound Healing Academy,
Right.
and then took level 1.
Yeah, where you just learned how to like work on
Which
yourself.
Yeah, switched my bowls to perfect pitch, because that's when I learned that they have to be a perfect pitch for the
Yeah.
effects of the intervals to work. Yeah.
Yeah. We've got, you want to hear the comments we've gotten so far? Let's see. We've got,
Okay, sure.
We've got, I got to get caught up on them. All right. So, any uses for discordant sound? Let's see. Yeah. All right. So Alexander asked if there's any uses for discordant sound. We can talk about that in a minute, and spirit reactions to harmonious sound. But I want to let's get back to the spiritual, practical manifestations of the stuff in a second. But somebody talks about dipole electromagnetism, the heart plane of inertia. Someone said like concave earth. James Diamond is one speaking on hell's the belly. Alexander says Nicole's a rad gal and a sick archer. James Diamond says brain equals higher self. Chris says the Orphic, coming soon, the Orphic hymn to Hecate, read by 3 women with West African drums and water. Sounds good vibes. Yeah, sounds great. James Diamond's pre-union says lower, and Ice Church says this is awesome. I'd love to hear from Nicole more often. So just so you know, you're getting a lot of fan love from the audience. I thought I'd share that with you. All right. Anyway, yes. So you had the transition. You changed. You got the healing in your arm. You felt it. You saw it. You had a vision of your goddess who you worship every day, who you already had an established relationship with. Drew you into a new path, and you learned, and you got your new first certification. You started getting your therapy or your own personal working on yourself and all that, right? And you got your set of bowls, and then right. So what happens? You started to talk earlier about the transformation that happens when somebody is healed. Like it takes away part of it, and then you got something else to replace it with. Is there? Can you talk about that at like a high level for what you're going through without getting too personal, of course? But like is there anything that you could touch on with that or?
Yeah. So like when I talk about repatterning and breaking old patterns of belief or things that we tell ourselves daily. This is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about second intervals. The seconds and the thirds specifically are meant to disperse and break up energies that are stored within the body, or energy points.
Mhm.
But yeah, so
But
without getting too personal,
right. So, did
uh,
you use it to like to break up some patterns of habits and stuff that were
thought patterns, things that you tell yourself that um, you may have believed
right?
about yourself and you subconsciously accept every day.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
that's
I had a lot of that come out in therapy. It's interesting that you had that come out when you were doing just the sound healing too. You know, and it's
yeah.
without getting into too much detail. Like I know that you started seeing a therapist for a little while there after some of that stuff started getting brought up, but you were able to work through it, you know, and find new healing as a result of that too. And you wanted to make sure. I'm only bringing that up because you wanted to bring up earlier. You asked to make sure that I said something about how there's a negative side to some of the sound healing stuff that comes up sometimes.
It can bring up really uncomfortable sensations. If you're not ready to look at it through the lens of a magician and ready to alchemize and fix it, it can
Mhm.
be somewhat corruptible. So yeah, that's something you got to watch out for.
Right. It's something you have to transform as it releases anything that's negative that comes up for sure. Um, all right. So yeah, in the process of healing, so it takes out the negative side of things and it forces you to examine it and transform it. Right. And so you can move on with it. But then you were talking about how like the powers of Mercury, that particular one is good for reestablishing patterns. Then do you want to carry on
Yeah.
with where that?
So the interval of the fourth, what Agrippa was talking about, the powers of Mercury are graced with the intervals of the fourth. And the interval of the fourth are said to reground yourself back into reality with the new patterns that you set.
Right. And
So after everything has been like dispersed, that energy actually gets recycled through the crucible, um, and then gets repatterned with the positive statement of intent. And it's the power of the fourth and Mercury that brings back that fresh new pattern
so
to for
you
healing.
just mentioned the statement of intent. So like in our rituals, we have a statement of intent, but in your healing process too, there's a part of it, like you were saying, you connect to the person with the heart. But before you even begin the healing session with the client, there's a part where you establish that statement of intent too, right?
Hmm.
So what
Yeah. So like for a client, like say if they hurt themselves and in their shoulder, like a positive statement of intent, it would be saying it in the present because like it's already happened in our minds where we've already thought about this the solution of being healed. And like when we're in the sound bath, I'm sorry, I'm talking with my hands a lot.
That's fine.
My Italian self
It's your Italian roots.
is going through. Uh,
Italian witches, man. That's how it is. How do you keep an Italian witch quiet? You just tie up her hands. Oh. I just, not that I would. Anyway, going on, carrying on. Where were we at there? Um, uh,
oh, I forgot what I was saying.
sound. What were we talking about?
Someone can help us.
What's that?
I got really distracted
I
there.
know we got. Sorry. I keep looking at your smile.
Oh,
What can I
I
say?
mean, like the
Um,
power of the.
so anyway, so the healing process, right? It transforms the person, and oh, all right, Mercury, right? It was bringing in new patterns to replace the old things. So what then happens when like after that, like. Oh, I'm sorry. It was the statement of intent. We talked about how you use the statement of intent to help ground that. So you marry the statement of intent to that mercurial part. Is that what you were saying, or?
Mhm. And also, like, you can say it out loud, your positive statement of intent. Like for me, when I healed my shoulder, my intent was my shoulder is restored to full function,
Uh-huh.
state of well-being and health.
Yeah,
And and then I would conjure like visions in my head to visualize to help direct the energy of the sounds into my shoulder. I would visualize things that I want, like
mhm.
seeing myself going out with my bow, shooting with
Oh,
100% focus and also comfortability.
right. Like it's already healed. Like your visualizations then weren't just healing energy going in and fixing what was wrong, but also visualizing yourself using the healed arm as if it was already. Oh, yeah. I think that's
Yeah,
important.
and you would indulge the senses
Mhm.
too. Like, how does it feel? What are you doing? What are you seeing? What are you smelling when you're doing that? And
Yeah.
all that.
Cool, cool. I want to get back to Agrippa real quick. In chapter 28, he talks about how sound. He talks in chapter 27 about the harmony of the body proportions, and then in chapter 28 he talks about the harmony of your spiritual proportions, and how part of being a celestial being involves bringing yourself into harmony. And then specifically he says, he talks about the harmony of the human soul and how to hasten the harmony of it. To hasten the harmony of the soul, we must inquire into it by those mediums by which it passeth to us, i.e., by celestial bodies and spheres. So you have to understand your body through the spheres. You have to know. He talks about how each of the spheres relate to the sounds. And then he says, knowing therefore what are the powers of the soul to which the planets answer, we shall by those things which have been spoken of before, the more easily know their agreements. Once you know how it reacts, you know how they agree with one another. And he goes into all these details about it, and I don't want to read all of them specifically, but he gets to a point where he talks about the will, and the will relates to the prime mover, right? And the prime mover is moving at a very higher rate of frequency. And he talks about how the will is the primum mobile, and the guide of all these powers at pleasure, being joined with the superior intellect. Always tending to be good, and sometimes the animal nature can make it be bad, but grace comes in and saves you. But he says, the wise ancients, therefore, knowing that the harmonious dispositions of the bodies and souls are diverse, according to the diversity of complexions of men, and did not in vain use musical sounds and singings as to confirm the health of the body and restore it being lost to. Anyway, what they're saying is your body is it can be a cacophony. It can be all confused and as hard to understand and know what's going on as what I was just trying to explain there. But the ancients knew that you played music to bring this harmony into your life, and to bring this transformation of this cacophony and these parts of your balance that are not in, or parts of your life that are not in balance, into balance. And it was the pleasing, harmonious creation of this vivified air through sound and music that created a harmonious, resonant response within the person to transform them into a celestial being. Anyway, point being, can you talk, Nicole, about when we go through these sound bath things? Like, I noticed right away that I had these revelations. Like, when you had your sound bath, you had a revelation of your goddess, and your goddess sat down with you, put her nose in your face, and said, "Hey, this is important. Pay attention." Right? And then after that, you went on, after you left the sound bath, and you had this divine experience with your goddess, you went on to incorporate this into your life. It was very important. It was very much a practical application of this divine revelation, right? Like, she told you something about your spiritual path that was going to happen, and it did. Now,
And also, if you follow the path of manifestation, where I was when I got that message was in the sphere of the moon.
mm,
There was no sounds presently playing. This was after the sound bath. There is a period of silence, and this is the reflective lunar phase.
mm. Oh,
So it's
so
like,
okay, so each sound bath then actually follows a planetary pattern as well.
Yeah, I think like generally, yes. You can very much look at Saturn as the induction and even statement of intent.
Uh-huh.
You can look at Mars as the carrying out and the guided visualization of intent, and they don't actually have a harmonic tone like Agrippa says, and that's for a reason. They need to be directing.
Okay, because it's an active force instead of a. All right, and then the sun.
The sun is a harmonic.
All right, and when you're playing the music, and then like each part of the ritual as it corresponds to the planetary part of the manifestation,
Yeah,
and then like so the Venus is more harmonics, and then Mercury is where you bring it back down, and then the moon is what's the moon then? It's
the
more
reflection phase, the period of silence.
right. Okay, and
And
that's
this is
and
this
Agrippa
is
says
what
it's in between Mars and Saturn for the yeah. Okay, for the notes. Interesting, and it's silence, huh? Anyway, so that's when you got your vision of Hecate, right? But I
is
wanted
in
to
the
talk,
moon.
but like so it wasn't just you though, right? It was I had a vision also of Zeus I've been carrying it with me ever since of this I have the Zeus that has Zeus the middle, Zeus the all in all thing, and it's like the source and the spirits as the middle and everything else. And I was able to see it from a perspective of just like light and then the seven colors and then this rainbow thing. And it's hard to explain, but it's like a glyph almost that puts me into a state that's like I've been saying the mantra like 100 times. So it's a really useful technique, but I got this revelation during the sound bath and I was able to turn it into a practice. Without going into names of people, a friend of ours that you treated got a vision from Lucifer that resulted in him having a practice that he is now put into place, and he's like teaching it to his acolytes, if I understand right. And if he's not teaching it, he's gotten something from it that's a practice. And then if you look at another friend of ours who's a pagan and into a lot of neo-pagan stuff, he received a whole bunch of stuff from his totem spirit and its animal form, right? And he's turned that into a bunch of practices, and I don't know if it's turned into a pamphlet or a booklet or what, but he's teaching these practices to his fellow pack mates, right? And this is a theme with this sound bath thing. You go to this sound bath thing, you get this treatment, you get this vision or this understanding of something that changes your practical application of your life, that changes your whole experience, and we talked, Agrippa talked about how it changes your physical experiences and nature, your external world, your mind, your emotions, your body heals. It heals these things. Sound is complementary, it's secondary, it's not like active, but it kicks off this process that brings clarity of mind. It brings focus. Like I obviously don't have it right now. I've been eating marijuana oil, but the thing about the sound therapy is that it creates resonance in your whole sphere that I feel like it goes out through the rest of our lives, and it comes with practical results too. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
what's the so? What do you think about all that? I mean, like there's you were saying earlier about the like as you integrate the healing and the process of it and the transformation and all that stuff. What's the I don't know. Anyway, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but like this transformational thing that we're doing with these energies when we get them
It makes
going.
everything better.
Well,
It really
yeah, and
does.
but I mean, how it's not a cult, right? I mean, it's not like sound becomes a cult. It's not a religion. It's complement. I don't know how to explain what I'm trying to get.
It's
It's
natural.
but
It's
it's
it's natural magic.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know for sure. But all right, anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit about clinical trials real quick. Clinical trials are being done on sound therapy. You were talking about a book that you were reading that has a bunch of lists of these things.
Yeah. So I mean, like I'm done reading it now, but if you
Yeah, you got to put that. There we go.
yeah, okay.
Perfect.
Yeah, so this is
Healing
The
power.
Healing Power of Sound
Yeah.
by Mitchell Gaynor, MD. and he is a cancer doctor, or was a cancer doctor. And this is great. Like, this book has a lot of information about sound healing, um, as well as case studies that
Hmm.
he's done
Yeah.
with his patients that have come in for chemo and also received sound through crystal wolves.
Right. And I think what's really cool about that is that it gives you the clinical trials, like the names and studies and all the scientific stuff that proves that this 15th century, 16th century occult bullshit stuff that we study it's real. Like, it really is a harmonic vibration to everything, and it really does.
Yeah,
And even just for when you were just practicing, like the way that you put together the tones, the way you build a sonic ritual out of it. There's an induction phase, there's an initiatory phase, there's a revelation, there's a conjuration, there's a revelation and like a scrying session almost, right? And then there's an integration and a manifestation, right? The whole process of manifestation goes through in this one little hour and a half long ritual that you do as you're sitting there, and you just sit there and watch all this stuff and the subtle bodies that they talk about with the chakra changes and the chakra balancing. I don't know. It gets into the territories of woo, and I understand why people get concerned about the woo side of things, but like, just in terms of like hands-on, like you were giving me a back treatment once with the sound therapy, and you put your hands on my back, and you were doing some light work energy healing, and you'd done it for me before when we'd first gotten together, and this was back when we were still back at Doug's, right? So like way back when we set the Wayback Machine to when we were like in a one room, tiny little room that had a bed and a pole. Anyway, so from there, like
hey, now that was
it
great.
was awesome. It was awesome in its own way. I had some, yes, but I definitely prefer where we're at now. But the I forgot what I was talking about again. God damn it.
The healing, the
Oh yeah,
hands-on
yeah, the
healing.
healing process. So
You pulled your back.
I pulled my back, and you'd done some healing on. Well, you'd done some healing on my knee when we were still with Doug's, and I felt this tingling, and it was intense at the time. I thought it was really really cool. But then like a month or so ago, I'd hurt my back, and you were working on my back, and you put your hands on it, and it was like being plugged into the wall for a second. It was like, and I'm like, holy shit, and you could feel the difference, and it's amazing how the sonic bath stuff really does have an impact on that woo woo
Yeah,
side of things, right?
yeah. I mean, I think the reason why you felt such a difference is because I've done a lot of work on myself and
Hmm.
to heal myself. And like, I asked for healing, I petitioned Hecate for healing for my shoulder, but what I really got was all kinds of healing that I didn't think during the time, and also like a career, a
Right.
new
Yeah.
career. Like,
Exactly. It changed you mentally, spiritually, physically, economically. I mean, we're getting ready to be in I'm making some money off of this whole thing. It's awesome, and
hopefully.
well, I mean, it always just keeps building on itself. Like there's not one part of this that hasn't continued to have a positive reverberation. It's almost like it's like an echo or a ripple. You speak something good, and then more good just echoes back into your life, and it's important, I think, to have this stuff going on. And there's a gong behind her right now, that black one with the gold thing. It is she played it the other day, and I was sitting on the couch, and all of a sudden it was almost like I'd had an indica just hit. Just like everything just sort of like faded around me, and I was like in this circular space. there's a myth that goes along with that gong that says just owning one brings the owner good luck. So this stuff is really real, you guys. It's not fake, and it's not new age, but there are some woo-woo results that are pretty cool. Like, so can you talk about the changes in your intuition, or?
Oh my God. Yeah. So like I've always been very empathic and sensitive to the energies of people, but not only just people, but rooms
Mhm.
and stuff like that. But when I started like working with my bowls on a personal level, fixing my chakras, and also working to induce visions, and there are some triads that help boost magical powers. I
Right, just make it a superhero, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah. Uh,
That's Doctor Strange. Sorry,
um,
strangeness,
so
strange.
like I went to a job as a nanny. I had a job with this like 8-year old, and we played like games all day. And one of the things that he had was a little chest that had a key code
Hmm.
on it, and he had written the passcode inside
Of course, as one
of the
does.
thing. And he was like, "Can you guess what this is?" And without like thinking about it, I was like 24815.
Mm.
And he's like, "Let's see if you're right." And so he put the freaking numbers in, and the thing opened, and then inside there was like a bunch of papers with like drawings and like games that he's done with other nannies, and then there was like the code,
Hmm.
and it was 24815. And I was like, "What?
Right.
What is this?"
So, I mean, not we haven't won the lottery, but I mean, it's
No.
that's the kind of
And
that's
then
the kind of cool little.
then like another time, I was just like in my car, and this was like also like I was on the way to another job. This was with a baby girl, and I was just in my car. I'm like, you know what? She's gonna get up at exactly like 11:10. Like exactly like at this time, she's gonna wake up from her first nap. And I put her down, and she fell asleep, and I watched that clock.
Hmm.
And I kid you freaking not, as soon as that hand turned, she got up and she looked up at me and she's like, "Hey."
Right.
Like,
Yeah, exactly. So you were getting premonitions, right? So you get like a
I don't
word.
know
So
if
in the
I
Bible they call
think,
that a word of knowledge, and then and you're getting
yeah.
premonitions of what's going to happen next, right? No,
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was premonition or claircognizance, because
claircognizance.
it was almost like just like a knowing,
Right.
just like
Yeah.
I know my name is Nicole.
Yeah. Yeah. You just you know what the number was. You know that, oh, this girl's going to wake up at that time, right? So, all right. So, you don't talk about a lot of the other instances where that happens. I don't know if you're entirely conscious of it, but you know things all the time. I can ask you things that you're not really aware of, and you're able to respond to me without. It's very convenient. You are very aware for a lot of things, and I've noticed that you have a supernatural awareness of what's going on, and I pay attention to you, to your moods and your that whatever you're talking about. You're very oracular, like you'll have a conversation with me about something, and then 2 days later I'll have an opportunity present itself that's based on that I wouldn't have been able to interact with without that conversation with you that you brought up out of the blue, you know, and it's like the harmonic that comes with this kind of work. It really is miraculous, and it really does shift the whole vibration of every other aspect of our life. So I'm excited about what about talking about this stuff. For one thing, I think it's neat to be able to sit down and talk with you about stuff. And but this is this is like one of those things that anybody can do, and have an instant connection with something that is magical and that results in the acquiring of miraculous occult experiences in their life that, regardless of how you choose to interpret them, are in keeping with what the occult literature promises. Okay, the last few weeks I've been talking about how we're supposed to be able to get these occult freaking powers from our occult practice, and our occult leaders are sitting there squabbling over group membership on Facebook. Oh, I mean, where's the dreaming dreams of what's going to happen next? I'm living a much richer life than that, and it's disappointing to see people so concerned about things like that, and we had this huge election fiasco. I'm not happy with the results of that, but we need to be magical. We need to be occult. We need to be all right. So the thing about all of this magic stuff is, and you go back to the divine pymander, you go back to when you do the sound bath therapy thing, your first interaction that kicks off this transformation is with God, right? Whatever your God is, right? We didn't talk about the guy who is not really much of a God person. He's an atheist. His religion is very atheistic. But he's had a complete change of life where he's in a position where he's humanistically helping people in ways that are creating fortune for himself and prosperity for everybody he touches, right? It resonates in a way that's clear with him. And this thing I'm talking about, God, I'm talking about the essence of what we are, what we're here to do. Like you were a born healer, Nicole, right? You've got this thing about you that's always been a healing agent that brings healing to everything you touch, and it goes around you and people feel it, and it's awesome, right? And this sound thing has made that more clear and more powerful and more potent. It's put you in touch with everything else in ways that you weren't before, and it's great to witness. Like, I've seen you transform over the last year, and all positive ways, and you were great to start with, but you've only become more great. It brought out all this does is bring out what's inside,
Yeah. It clears out what needs to be cleared and brings out what needs to be brought out.
Yeah, exactly. And it just makes you more of who you were, in the best ways. And it gets rid of the things that weren't beneficial to what you want in life, right? Because you understand it better. And anyway, I really want people to do this kind of thing. I want them to feel the transformation that this stuff brings for us, because it's easy to do, you can do it yourself with your own transformations. And this is the kind of the result that I wish every occult practice had, but the healing thing is much more physical. The vibrations are much more intimate, and they vibrate in your cellular level. They change you resonate with the healing situation in a way that makes these changes more immediately effective, right? So, okay, so let's go back to our comments here real quick. Yeah, Ice Church, you're talking about the statement of intent. Sorry. All right, so I had a little bit of pop before we started, just nerves. And with the technical difficulties, it was fine. It was just fine. All right. Handcuffs, yes. Aligning newfound intentions through the crucible. Bluesery says aligning newfound intentions through the crucible. And yes, Mercury. Yes, exactly.
That's a concept that we're taught is how to form the transformation sound healing crucible. That's actually part of the induction. So it's neat. People are getting it.
The crucible?
Yeah.
You mean that's part of the visualization technique that when
I mean, like, you don't have to visualize a crucible, but when we talk about like forming the crucible of intent, that's the cup that holds the sounds, right?
That's cool. So they've integrated the whole alchemical symbolism right into the framework of modern sound healing that you're learning.
Yeah.
And what's the name of the place you're going to?
What's that?
What's the place where you're getting your certification through?
It's the Sound Healing Academy.
The Sound Healing Academy is what it's called. Okay. All right. And yeah, so I just wanted to, and I want to go back before we forget. Alexander asked earlier about dissonance and evil spirits.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have that handy, of course. But do you want to talk about the dissonant qualities of music and how that impacts things spiritually?
Yeah, so the dissonance notes or intervals are the intervals that are seconds and thirds.
Okay.
The seconds will help break up excess energies or energies that are stuck inside of a chakra.
Hmm.
Um,
So like, and
and
when you say that, what you're talking about is like before you do the therapy, you do an assessment where you ask a pendulum, you use pendulum dowsing. So this is something else, guys. Everybody who's watching, when you're so she started doing pendulum dowsing, or she was doing it before, but she started doing it like regularly as part of the healing practice, and it's incredible how accurate it can be with her sometimes. So it's great. But with the healing thing, it's every time like you could see the thing spinning
yeah,
and
you can also test with sound as well.
mhm,
Like you could take like a tingshaws or like the chimes
mhm.
and chime them together and then put them into your subtle body. And depending, like if there's a change, that's an indication of an imbalance.
So you have to be very aware of your own energetic body, your spiritual body, and your flow of energy as it relates to the sound that you're interacting with after it plays near your clients, right? So you're assessing when you're doing the healing, you're not just you're looking at how sound related to that person impacts your sphere to understand what's going on with. Oh, that's kind of
I'm
that's
aware of what my thoughts and feelings are as well. That's part of our
yeah.
training.
That's a lot of work, but it's all the most successful magic that I've been a part of has always been on multiple levels like that. It's heart, mind, body, soul.
Multi-dimensional.
Right.
Yeah, we're multi-dimensional beings. We work on many different levels.
Right. And the sound that we're talking about, using these intervals and these notes that are in harmony with the rhythms and the tones of the planets that we're trying to accomplish, it creates the soundtrack to the movie of our life, right? And that's important. It's important to get it so that the theme is in keeping with everything else. You know, it matters a lot. Let's see. In my experience, it's an advantageous to additive to have a magician doing this form of healing. Yes, a magician is, yes, this form of healing I think is very much magic. I think, Nicole, wouldn't you agree that this is very much an extension of what you're already doing as a magician?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, it's enhances everything.
Like a magnifying glass, or like
Like a
have you noticed like any
magnifying glass.
new
Ex-
experiences
I
or
mean, if you worked with quartz crystals before, they have their own frequency in of itself. Can you imagine a circle of nine?
okay, yeah. So
And
it's like.
then add in the spirits that I call in first, Asclepius and Hygeia, the seven
Hygeia,
sisters
that's
of
who it
flame.
was. Hygeia, I forgot. I've been trying to think of Hygeia all day. I knew that you worked with a goddess too, and I couldn't think of who it was. But yeah,
Yeah.
so before she even starts, when a client comes in, she goes in and cleanses a temple and does an opening ritual where it's where she brings in the goddesses and Asclepius energy to even before we even begin the thing. So it's really cool to watch her work. So. Um, anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead. What were you talking about? Did I interrupt you again?
Oh, what I was gonna say, like you brought up Asclepius, and in ancient Greece, they found temples, Asclepius temples that are carved out to serve acoustics and harmonics.
Mm. Oh, right, because sound healing was actually a part of Asclepius's thing. That's Desiderius or Theophratus or something was Agrippa was talking about, quoted that was part of what Asclepius taught was sound therapy. Anyway, yeah, it's even in our occult history we were supposed to have known that. We were supposed to have not forgotten that. But I did anyway. Let's see. Tist says, is the title implying that Agrippa speaks about becoming a celestial being in a second book of occult philosophy. Not specifically, no. Agrippa just kind of encapsulates the great work, and he does use the phrase a celestial being as the result of what you are after you've done this sonic transformation, when you've brought yourself in harmony with the spheres using sound and rhythm and all these other things, and you've gone through this process that he describes the transformation that Nicole just talked to you about. He talks about it in Old English in this translation, in Latin in the original. He says the same thing.
You can just read it.
You just read it, but Nicole says it better. It's just more modern. Anyway, yeah, you do become it's a being in tune with the celestial, is what he says, and it's in Book 2, Chapter 28, where he's talking about becoming in harmony with the celestial and your true will becoming that which is motivated by the prime mover, the primum mobile. You are one with your source, basically, is what he's saying, and you're in harmony with the other spheres, and you are celestial in the way that they are celestial, because you've become resonant with everything that's going on. And I think in practice what that means is you don't have to look at your transits chart to know what offerings to make, because you know when you wake up and you look at your statues that it's a good day to light Venus candles, because you know that that's how you reharmonize your sphere according to your intent, and it's going to be different based on what you want. So in the way that Nicole has a goddess and a god that starts, and then a visualization, an induction, a sensation of her own interaction with a sound that was played off of another person's part of their aura or whatever, right? The way she has to be aware of all that stuff on multiple levels at the same time, we have to do that as magicians about every freaking thing in our life, and it's not something we can do consciously.
Yeah, I mean, well, we can try to consciously do that.
Well, I think where I was going with that was the spirits and the resonance that we build up around us mean that we don't have to. In the way that you just know things, the way that the information is just there when you need it, and that the vibe that you get when you're in tune with things, you know, it carries through the information that you need, and you don't have to be aware of all of it. You just know it's time to light the Venus thing, and you don't question it because you've learned to trust yourself. You've got metis, the confidence. Anyway, so I think we've talked about everything that's on my list. Were there any other questions? And alchemy using the spagyric tinctures is how you learn the 7 spheres. Yeah, exactly. You use things to learn things. Yes, Felightentist has really great, interesting things to say about things. I don't want to read them all right now. I love the idea of integrating sound healing. Yes, New Age ethical principles. Well, it's not he who must not be named. I believe I know what your name is, Mr. DG. But remove the woo and you've removed the magic. I agree 100%. But this isn't New Age or modern. This is Agrippa was recording it from the Greeks, so it's not new. We call it New Age because the New Age is actually giving people like Nicole the tools to apply Hermetic principles in their daily life. Imagine New Age, God forbid. Similar to what happens. Okay, I think we're good with tuning forks. All right, yeah, all right, great. Everybody, thank you very much for your time, your everything. Nicole, thank you so much for doing this with me. Appreciate you expounding on things and making it interesting. Hi, Douglas. Nice to see you too. But we're just wrapping up.
Hi, Doug. You just Doug.
Thanks. Nice to see you. Bye.
We're just finishing up.
Everybody have a great time. Thanks for joining us. Talk to you next time.